and it's maximizing return on investment from U.S. Latino travel marketing campaigns. We have two wonderful guests today. We have Joaquin Pradas, Director of Business Development for Grupo Parada, excuse me, and Marcelo Rodriguez, CEO of Inlanet. So please join me all in welcoming them and getting ready for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay up there? Good.
Yes.
All right. First of all, what we wanted to do today, we're going to do an interactive, collaborative presentation between the Grupo Parada and Inlanet. Basically because it makes a lot of sense since both groups are interrelated and complement each other in their strategic marketing and development and then the implementation of different digital marketing. And that's basically why we are very pleased to be at this time slot of the day, because after listening to the different presentations, it is more and more evident that a very specific and tactical strategic approach needs to be taken when it has to do with the internet marketing, in this case to the Hispanic market. So first of all, we would like to, the Grupo Parada is the strategic, say, leg or component of the group, and Inlanet is the tactical implementer or developer of the different digital marketing techniques and tools. The first thing is, so what do we do as an entity? What is our basic goal? Well, we are a consulting company that connects businesses to the Hispanic market, and this word connect is not, I don't want to utilize a word that obviously is used or abused in many ways. The idea is to really reach out and see how it can optimize that relationship. There are many companies here that are online, that are obviously involved with the Hispanic market, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So therefore, we don't want to repeat or want to, say too much about something that's already well known. So we want to take a bit of a different approach. The first thing, obviously, which we obviously are now in the midst of a political campaign, it is clear that the politics are going to play a big role, and that the Hispanic market is going to be determining factor in terms of who's going to be elected in November of this year. So we start off with Yo Decido, which it is a clear indication or a celebration that the Hispanic voter is going to be a determining factor. But not just any Hispanic voter, but the educated, the voter that is involved, that really reaches out and sees what the power of the vote is all about. The key question, obviously, and we wouldn't be here if it not were obvious, is it worth the trouble? Is the audience, the Hispanic market, really worth the investment? Now, many people have said that Anglo media or Anglo approach is sufficient. That why make a specific effort in addressing the Hispanic media, especially in the Spanish language medium. And the question is well, is it worth it? If I were a company, and as the regional director of Mexico mentioned, 2.3 million businesses are owned by Hispanics. They're a major base of the U.S. economy. How do you reach them on a business-to-business approach? What about a business-to-consumer? We always have to think also in terms of, we talk a lot about business-to-consumer, but there's a lot of businesses out there that are Spanish language businesses. And a B2B campaign is very much has to be part of any company, depending on obviously what product or services that they're trying to sell. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into the statistics because a lot of them have already been given out tonight, but obviously we have the 50 million plus. But what's important about the 50 million is the growth. Over the last decade, they have grown 43%. Now that is really a significant figure, not just the 50 million, but the 43% growth. Now obviously that growth is not going to continue at a rate of 43%, every decade. But it is obviously a very, let's say, good foundation for any business. So is it worth the trouble? Well, does 50 million plus worth the travel? So obviously the answer is yes.
Now, it's critical to see that the growth has been continuous, that the purchasing power has been there. So obviously, we believe very strongly that any effort that is made will absolutely, come with success. Now, one of the key elements in tonight's theme is about the penetration or the reach of the Hispanic population in the internet, and the bold in black, if you can see it from back there, shows a 70% number of penetration expected through 2014. What's interesting is not only just the absolute number, but the relationship that you still have a growth potential in the marketplace. This has already been covered regarding the social media. Obviously, the Hispanic market, or the Hispanics are very much into social media. So this is obviously a reality, and this is just kind of a graphic way of showing how the Hispanics compare to the other ethnic groups in the United States. The key, though, is let's look at the U.S. Hispanic travel market. After all, this is the theme of today, the travel market. And here we have some interesting information. First of all, there are 16.2 approximate million Hispanics considered adult leisure travel. Okay? Now that's a substantial number of travelers. There are 50 million of them. I mean, they have taken 50 million domestic and outbound trips. Now that's quite a number of millions of opportunities for anybody who is in the travel industry who wants to reach out to the Hispanics. What's interesting is 51% of the Hispanic households have children at home versus 38% of the general population. That has also been touched today regarding the family orientation, the values that the Hispanics households have regarding travel and how it affects the selection of the destination. There's obviously an increased focus on educational activities for children within a vacation. And 31% of the Hispanic travelers have 4 or more travelers in the party. This again is something that has been touched upon today, and obviously it shows the importance of the family as it regards the whole market. But one thing that is key about reaching out to the Hispanic market is market segmentation. Especially the Hispanic market can be classified very distinctly, not just in terms of demographics, but also psychographics, okay? So when you look at the Hispanic market, you have, especially for travel, okay? You have a very, very strong first generation 50+ baby boomers. Now, that's a major number, and most of them are Spanish dominant. Can they be reached via the online and the offline marketing? Well, both of them. We heard today in the presentation that the abuelas are getting into the whole issue of online marketing. So with Facebook. So this is a great opportunity, but their whole psychographic of how they look at travel and what prompts them is very different from the bicultural 20+ Generation X, Generation Y, the millennials, so they call them also. And they're much more online and social media bilingual. Now that is a very important, depending on what kind of product you market, the travel product. I mean, it takes very much in mind exactly who is it that you're trying to reach, and what is the message, and what is the platform that you're going to use. Are you going to use the platform of the classic media? For example, the baby boomers would obviously react very well to advertising in Canal 41, Canal 47, those kind of traditional media. Some of them, again, with Facebook, that would be an interesting way of also reaching them. Okay? Obviously, the Generation 20+, that's a whole different area. What's very interesting, and again, we want to stress upon it, is the upscale Latinos. Okay? In travel business, the upscale is really the name of the game, because that's the group that spends the money. The average Latino spends over $1,000 per, in terms of online purchases, and those are the people that you can attract, and they're more resistant and resilient when it comes to economic ups and downs. The upscale Latinos are how many? Are they significant? Should we really bother with them? Well, there's 8.2 million people, or almost 3 million households considered upscale. okay? And what is the upscale? The threshold, 75,000 household income. Now, that's a substantial number, and they own 67% of them are homeowners. And what's very interesting, 21% of the total Latinos represent 51% of the total income that is earned. So the purchasing power of that group is tremendous. And when you have a travel potential of $680 billion, that is quite a chunk of change, as we call it, in terms of potential, in terms of reaching a very upscale. And obviously, as I said here, they do spend considerable money when they purchase online. Another thing that I think is important when you deal with the travel market is the distribution channels, okay? And any company that wants to reach out to in the Hispanic market has to look at a number of options. One is the online search engines, okay? Now there's different ways. I mean, the airlines have a very sophisticated search engines to buy tickets. But remember that also a lot of the Hispanics look at or use the internet to search, to look for options. And later on, they may or may not go to the local travel agency, or they book online. They have different ways of actually purchasing their travel needs. You'll have the online booking engines, the ones that the airlines have, and many other companies now, especially tour operators, consolidators, set up online booking engines for their clients. When they go into their website, they can go in and actually, close the sale. A big part of the idea of the online booking engine is to create a one-stop shopping. So if you are interested, again, in the travel to the Hispanics, or basically to most any kind of audience that travel, the idea of closing the sale at the time that they're booking or looking is a way of increasing the sale. Again, part of the theme is how do I make my investment profitable? And you don't want to have somebody come into your website, search and leave and go someplace else. You want to close the sale as much as possible at that moment. A very important aspect is the travel agencies. Now, nowadays, travel agencies have become, people may think that they have become passé, that they're out of date. They're really, the internet has taken over a lot of their, let's say, the reason for being. Well, in many ways it has been, and ASTA can show you the American Society of Travel Agents statistics of the reduction of the number of travel agencies in the United States, and it has been dramatic. But those who have stayed have had to reinvent themselves. And how do they reinvent themselves? By adopting also technology becoming a friend rather than an enemy. And I think it's very important to look at the concept of a virtual travel agency. There's a lot of people that now work from home. It used to be, the home-based agent. Well, let's think about them as virtual agents, where besides just working from home and calling people, now you utilize the technology, okay, in terms of conferencing, Skype, all kinds of different ways that you can interact with your client. There are companies out there that dedicate certain travel agencies to specific countries, to specific products, and therefore, if a client goes in and wants to talk about buying a travel package to Spain or South America, they channel that call to a specialist and who's at home and is able to interact with the client. So the virtual concept of travel agencies versus the brick and mortar, obviously you still need brick and mortar because there are some cases where people like the idea of going to see them. And in the Hispanic market, that's very important because the travel agency does more than just selling travel. They sell travel, they sell insurance, they sell translations. They're a multifaceted small business, the Hispanic travel agency. So obviously here is one area that all of these suppliers can look at the travel agency, the brick and mortar agency, and provide them with tools to be able to sell better, to be able to also educate them and have their clients come to visit them or see them on the internet and use their product. So there's a lot of things that any supplier or any seller of travel should still be looking at travel agencies and how to assist them. Then you have the virtual interactivity. You have a lot of opportunities with business exchanges, trade shows, Virtual trade shows, which is something that is going to become more and more popular. People, instead of going physically to a country or a place for a trade show, they'll do it virtually and be able to go through all of the different stands. There's a whole change in the whole virtual world out there, and I think this is going to be good for anybody who's really in there, from the very beginning. And obviously, we talked about social media, how gadgets really engage Latinos. There's a lot of statistics that show that Latinos are very much online, that they are very avid users of smartphones and mobile. And there's a lot of research being done. And one of the key elements is to look out in making your websites and so forth mobile friendly. Because it's not just about having a website, but is it friendly for mobile? A lot of people think, well, I have a website and I'm all set. Well, you just look it on the internet and you forget about it. Unless it's mobile sensitive, it's going to be very difficult to navigate through the website. So these are the kind of things that need to be looked at if you're interested or serious about taking on this market. So why are companies not connecting with the Hispanic market? Well, this is something that some of them is because they don't think that it's important, others don't know how to do it, and others do it but they're not happy with the returns. And with that, I pass on to my colleague.
Thank you.